The President of the United States, Donald Trump, is celebrating his 80th birthday today. And to mark the occasion, the storied South Lawn of the White House has been transformed into a mega cage fight where the U.S. President will watch combatants throw punches at each other. The UFC bout will take place as Trump looks to end a costly war with Iran. The signing of the deal is perhaps the biggest birthday gift the U.S. President is expecting. Trump says the MOU with Iran will be signed today. According to Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, both sides will sign the document electronically. But there has been no formal word from Iran. According to reports published in Iranian media, the country's top leadership has yet to announce its final decision on the MOU. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei says the date of the signing has yet to be determined, but added that it will not be Sunday. Meanwhile, resentment is growing inside Iran. People took to the streets to protest the proposed agreement and chanted slogans criticizing Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Chief Negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. The fine print of the deal is not publicly available yet, but Israel's war in Lebanon, the fate of Iran's nuclear stockpile, and the administration of the Strait of Hormuz remain major sticking points. In a post on Truth Social, the President of the United States said that strait would be opened after the deal is signed. Iran's Foreign Minister Araghchi said the administration of the strait would no longer be the same as before. The American president said the U.S. would go into Iran, retrieve Iran's nuclear material, and dilute it in Iran or the United States. However, Araghchi contradicted that statement by Trump and said the only option is to downgrade nuclear material inside Iran. The third major roadblock is Israel's war in Lebanon. Peace on the Lebanese front is one of Iran's key demands for a deal with the United States. But there has been no such commitment from Washington, with the Iranian Foreign Ministry accusing Israel of attempting to sabotage the deal. Chris Doyle, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us at this hour. I just want to know from you, what is your expectation of today? We have a president who's celebrating his 80th birthday. He expects a deal to be signed. Iran says that they're not yet certain about the deal because they will not sign it electronically, by the way. So what do you think will happen today?
Well, thank you very much. I'm from the Council for Arab-British Understanding. I think today Donald Trump is not going to get a birthday present of this deal. I think that we are close. That's clearly the case. But getting over that little 1% at the end will probably mean it goes in tomorrow or Tuesday. And you still, as you have rightly reported, find that there are still, at least in public, variations of interpretation as to what the deal actually means. And of course, I think crucially, probably the toughest issue will be the issue of Lebanon because of Israeli defiance. Prime Minister Netanyahu is absolutely clear that he will continue to attack Lebanon, even up to southern Beirut. And Netanyahu doesn't like this deal. He doesn't want to see a deal with Iran. So he has absolutely no inclination to stop the bombing of Lebanon. The only way that will happen is if there is a phone call from President Trump saying, you've got to do this, or we will end support, we will end weapon supplies. Now, I think all of that, could happen, that the riot act could be read to Netanyahu. I just don't see it happening today. I could be very wrong because we live in very curious and uncertain times with an unpredictable American leadership. But I just feel the Iranians aren't in a rush, and I don't think they necessarily want to sign a deal on his birthday.
Mr. Doyle, before I ask you my next question, I really have to apologize for that read up to your introduction. I beg your apology.
No problem.
Let's continue. There's this protests that are happening in Iran. What do you make of those protests? Because the Iranians are not happy with their negotiators. That is Ghalibaf and Arakchi.
Well, there's a lot of noise about this. There will be those within Iran who, don't particularly like the deal, who may be spoilers, and it would also be there to try to demonstrate that this is not a slam dunk. The Iranians do not want to look desperate. They don't want to look as if they're about to cave into US pressure. So I think this is all the noise that is typical in the run-up to a ceasefire deal in such a bitter conflict where there is no trust. As I said, I think we are getting there. That final little bit over the line will take a while, but I think in the next day or so we will get that signature, electronic or otherwise, and hopefully get to see the Strait of Hormuz open, oil and gas and other products being traded again in a more normal fashion. But, we're still going to have to be very wary of the 60 days period in this ceasefire, because you have to get straight into working on a more permanent deal, because I think that's the only way you're going to get lasting security in, that Gulf region.
Doyle, my last point, let's just revisit my first point, and that is Lebanon. Now that Israel seems not to abandon their mission in Lebanon, and that is a sticking point in this peace deal, how do you think that will play out? Because Washington is not saying anything about Lebanon.
Well, the fact they're not saying anything doesn't mean they're not doing something in private, and what they are messaging the Israeli leadership. It may well require the president, as I said, to really read the riot act to Prime Minister Netanyahu, to remind him of how much support the United States gives the state of Israel every year, diplomatically, economically, militarily, and that the overwhelming necessity right now is to get a deal with Iran. It won't mean that there aren't going to be tensions between Israel and Hezbollah that could spill out. They have to be guarded against. And of course, we're going to have to get to some political solution for the situation in Lebanon. That's absolutely true. We cannot have a situation in which there are, there's fighting across that border, rockets going across it, Israeli fighter jets flying over most of Lebanon. So the issue of Lebanon has to be dealt with. But at some point, the penny has to drop that doing it only by military force is not going to work. It hasn't worked since 1982, and it won't work now.
All right. Mr. Chris Doyle, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for your time and for talking to us today.